Hello, my name is Evol, and this is Darkling-studios, and today we are discussing The Legend of Zelda. Nice to meet you all.
Hello, my name is the Darkling. Never got by that before, but I'm gonna go by it now.
Yeah, okay. And I'm Evol, and my channel's name's Peridian. And today we both played so much of The Legend of Zelda, it's ridiculous. So I
We're
feel
very,
like
very avid users of their products.
if anybody was to talk about it, we'd be good to do so.
I think a good first step is to discuss the games in particular we're going to talk about during this talking session.
I say Ocarina of Time,
For sure.
Majora's Mask,
Yes,
and Twilight Princess.
one of my favorites. There are, we've played most of the games, but there are a couple Legend of Zelda games we have not played.
Like the Phantom Hourglass,
So if
Spirit Tracks.
If you're watching and you bring up some comments about those, as we do have the comments set up next to the stream, and we can read them, we are not going to be able to answer any of those questions.
But we would love to hear about them because, I'm not a big fan of Spirit Tracks in general, but, Zelda is awesome no matter what it is. So.
Like, personally, I've played and beat Skyward Sword like 4 or 5 times, but the newer Legend of Zelda game was Into the Wilds. I've never even...
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I've never even touched the controller for that game. I'm pretty sure it's on Wii U right now.
Breath of the Wild hasn't come out. It's gonna be on the Nintendo Switch.
See, that just tells you how much I don't know about it. Okay, so
I brought on an expert. Me. It's me.
I'm a pretty good expert on the older games. I have not been caught up with it for some time.
So let's go ahead and go over Ocarina of Time.
You explain Ocarina, I'll explain Majora's Mask, and then you go back.
I think we both could talk about all of them.
Alright.
It's like Ocarina of Time. It's a staple of gaming. It wasn't like it didn't start off like with save mechanics like the original one did, but it had so many things it did right. And I would say it's my second favorite, which is going to make a lot of people angry. But I have a lot of love for another one, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But what do you like about it?
Well, I was going to go over like a brief synopsis of what the game's about, what's going on in the game. We're going to talk about it. I didn't know we were just going to talk about feelings about it first.
This is just a casual discussion. We're not like selling the game. I don't think we need to do that at this point.
But if anyone clicks on this video on accident or intentionally, and we're talking about games that we have not discussed what's happening, and they can play it, then they're not going to know what's going on.
I doubt it, but go ahead.
Alright, so The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a story about a Hylian child who was given to a group of forest-dwelling children, imps, called the Koku. And he grows up, which they don't do. So he finds out that way that he's not Koku, and embarks on an adventure to stop.
I actually think it's quite funny how he gets told he's adopted. It's pretty much he goes and saves the Great Deku Tree. The Great Deku Tree dies, and then his son grows up and is like, "You're adopted. Here's the story."
Yeah, and tree's always smiling at somebody's body. Like that face. Like,
It's like it's like if your parents came up to you and they're like, "We got great news. We just found out you're not really our son." That's awful.
but yeah, I really do love Ocarina of Time, just for more or less the fact that it's replayable.
It was my first Zelda game back when I was 4 years old. I beat that game in a record amount of time.
I'm gonna say it's also my first Zelda game. I don't remember back that far, but I know this game more in depth than I know myself, so that's saying something.
Saying too much.
Saying too much.
Yeah, but I've gotten to the point where I could beat it 100%, and I know it all on the back of my hand. So it's one of those things. It's where I would say it's my second favorite, but I know Ocarina of Time way more than any other Zelda game.
This is going to be all opinions, but we need to discuss what's good and what is not so good about the game if we're going to do this game justice. So, what is, let's say, one thing you would say makes this a good game, other than your own personal experience with, like,
Oh, I'd have to say the introduction of Z targeting because that was something that they didn't really use beforehand, and it just made the mechanics of it so smooth and solid. Like the sword fighting, you felt like you were actually jumping around, but not like you would for the Wii per se. But it made things so much smoother. And when it came to like Nintendo 64 and that era of gaming, things could be really clunky. So for a game to come out and be that smooth and that fun to play without any sort of like glitches, well, obviously there was some here and there, but for the most part, it was a well polished game. And when you have stuff like Sonic 06 and trying to play games with that, Superman 64, yeah, that game was in the same era of gaming as Ocarina of Time. So when we have so many unmonitored games like that, for this game to be as good as it is, I think that's awesome.
I think the whole open world thing that they actually ended up starting in the Legend of Zelda series is probably one of the best things about it. It's not quite as open world as what we have today, but they didn't have that kind of processing power. Just having the world that they did was very impressive.
They originally planned for Ganondorf to be like a Shadows of the Colossus type character where you could climb him and attack him, but limitations stopped them from doing it. But that would have been awesome, and I still think if they went back and recreated a version of that where you had to do that, I would definitely want it if just for that part.
Like, someone's probably going to at least attempt to make something like that in Unreal Engine 4.
I mean, when they got the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time, everybody thought that's what they were going to do, try to use some of the things from the original plan that they had too many limitations for, and like introduce it into that 3DS
But
game.
what is something that was bad about it? Not like necessarily a killjoy or something that would take you out of the experience, but what was something that was rather annoying or not done
Murky
well?
textures. I get that a lot from people who've never played that like era of game, because for me it's fine and it's beautiful, but for other people they're like it's really muddy looking, and I would say it was good for the time.
Even Dark Souls does that now. They just have so much stuff to put textures on that they don't have enough processing power or space available to do that. Like, if you are playing Dark Souls 2 and you go down into the giant chasm place that has the Throne of Warrant, then if you look on the wall, it's just repeated over and over, about 150 times.
Let's try to stay on Zelda, but yeah,
I'm just making the comparison to like now, even they do that now.
Yeah, I've seen that. So it's like it's more of something they had to do, because it can't be like all vivid and bright. It would not fit with the game really.
I would say one thing they didn't do quite as well as I think they should is character models. Like, they had the ability to actually make more in-depth character models. It would have taken away a little more of the processing power and made it maybe lag in some cases. But I've seen the spreadsheets where they made the higher resolution, more polygon characters, but they just didn't use them.
I would say I have to disagree for the fact that they do have some amazing characters, like the postman, he was well done, and the old man, who was in charge of the carpenter.
The old man in particular, they actually ended up using one of his more high quality character models. That's why he looked like softer and more realistic in terms of that.
And a lot of the enemies were so well done. Like, I mean, it's just...
But the main character, Link's face, it is super low quality, and it has just really rough, hard edges all over it. And you can see that. Like, just, for me, it took away from the experience.
What I was thinking of was the Stallfalls, I believe. Yeah, when you're in the Forest Temple and you're fighting the Stallfalls, that they looked awesome. Like you actually, when you first fought them, you were like, "Holy crap!" And when they got back up, when you weren't fast enough, it was actually a challenge. When you got down to like the spirit temple and they're on the boat and you just wipe them out, you feel like you've accomplished something because you're better, you're more powerful, and it's just that level of journey and growth is just amazing.
Speaking of the Spirit Temple, one of my favorite aspects of the entire game was the lens of truth and how they incorporated it with platforming.
Yeah.
They had invisible floors that you needed magic and the lens of truth to be able to use and see everything. And they had invisible shut areas as well. And some of them you didn't even have to go to, like especially in the fan-made remake, the Master Quest. They had a lot of those.
That does bring me to two negative points, though. One, I always thought there should be hidden stuff throughout the world that you could just find with the lens of truth. Like you're in a random forest and you turn on the lens of truth and there's a secret. That would have been awesome, but that was never there.
You mean exactly like they did in Twilight Princess?
Pretty much. But another thing is the freaking bunny shoes. As much as I loved them, and I wore them the entire time after I got them, the inertia off of those made going around really annoying sometimes.
Oh, I loved it. Like you could like drift around corners and stuff. That was cool.
I'm just saying it got pretty annoying when you're trying to walk into a door and you have the problem where you keep knocking around into stuff before you can get into it. Or if you're trying to go somewhere and you end up getting killed because the shoes dragged you off.
The shoes did have a downside, kind of. Whenever there's certain places in the game where if you have the bunny shoes equipped, you can run and actually clip out of the map. And you can cheat like that because the map is laid out in a number system that has 4 different numbers, and the numbers that get developed through what door you go through is where you'll end up. And if you click out of the right wall and fall and it teleports you, you could, like for instance, one of the biggest cheats that there is in the game is clipping through the well that you use to get into Zora's place. And that'll put you in the final boss battle.
I've never been one to try to cheat those games because I got to a point where I could defeat the whole game rather quickly. So I mean, it just never felt good to me. It's like it's nice when you like discover something like that, like the whole when you go down Hyrule Castle. If you sing the Ring song next to the tree, you go down and boomerang the Sculpture. If you backflip into the light before it gets to you, you can go back down and get another one. And I did use that to get the Sculptures faster. But I mean, it's nice to find stuff like that, but it's kind of it makes it the journey and exploration just like it's there, but it kind of lessens it a little.
I have Project 64 on this computer. We could be playing like the intro to Ocarina of Time in the background while we do this.
No, we can't. It's copyrighted.
The video, isn't it? We can have the video playing without the music.
Yeah, but I think we'll save that for another discussion because no matter how long we sit here and talk, there's no way we could do justice to any of these games because we'll be like, oh yeah, we forgot to talk about this. Because it's like we could sit and list off stuff and not get everything.
Like, for instance, we haven't even brought up how they were literally the pioneers of the boss and mini-boss setup. Like, you fight through a place, get a mini-boss, and then move on and do a final boss after you've done a bunch of mini-bosses.
Would you say which Ganon do you prefer? Would you say you prefer this one or Twilight Princess?
It's hard because this one can be defeated with a bottle.
Well, I mean, they are the same person, which is
my favorite is actually like just straight character-wise is Skyward Swords because Demise looks just amazing. He is so cool, and he has the inverted Master Sword that's got all spikes on it and stuff, and it looks great.
I'd have to say
purely from a design perspective.
I mean, I know people are gonna get mad because for a long time they didn't really have the following they did, but I would have to say when I first played Twilight Princess, it was my favorite because it pretty much it's a continuation of Ocarina of Time with the same Ganondorf, but in this one he's like more pig Ganondorf kind of, where he turns into like the big beast. I wouldn't say that's more pig Ganon, but he is more beast-like in this game because he's like on his last leg, but he's so cool. I mean, they tried to wipe him out, and he's just like, nope, and he kills all of them, and he gets Gant to help him, which Gant was such a twist for me, and I loved it because he looked so cool in the promotional stuff, and when you're fighting him throughout it, he's so cool. And then he ends up being like crazy.
It's the mutton chops.
I'm talking about the one with the fish mask.
Oh, I'm talking about Xanth.
The Xanth? I said Gant. Yeah, I thought his character was so good, and it was so unexpected.
That's what they were going for, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Twilight Princess now?
We'll save Majora's Mask for last because Twilight Princess is a continuation, and I'd like to link those.
Well, Majora's Mask is also a continuation.
In different timeline.
In a different timeline.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and do...
So they're more or less the same.
We'll go ahead and do Twilight Princess and then do that. Because I still go with the theory...
Twilight Princess compared to Ocarina of Time. There are so many things that they changed, but so many things that they kept spiritually the same.
I think the art style is wonderful. People always try to say they don't like the more realistic, but I thought it was beautiful. And the whole... everyone said it was pretty barren, but I didn't think so. I mean, it seemed like perfect for the atmosphere they were giving us.
The lonely thing they were going for. But how can you not like gold on top of black? That wall just looks amazing when you get up to it, and Minda pulls you through, and you have no idea what the heck that was. It's like giant red arm.
Yeah, it's like I do think it's strange that the Wolf Link they made you go through and do the freaking orbs where you had to collect those, and that got so frustrating. But it made you learn how to be Wolf Link before you went and were just Link, because they want you to be able to switch back and forth and not just be one or the other the entire time.
If you got super used to one thing, then you would only use the other one for what was absolutely necessary, and you couldn't expand your experience with it.
I found myself using both of them equally.
Actually, I used Wolf Link a lot more than I used regular Link, because just for the fact that his kill 'em all attack, like, he just jumps back and forth and kills like everything.
Midna's hair grabs onto him, pulls him to him.
Yeah.
So
speaking of Midna's hair,
Midna!
That hand was actually not her hair. It was the mask.
Really?
It was always the mask.
How do you know?
Because whenever she goes with all pieces of mask, she's the huge thing that's the same color as the hair, and they said it in an interview with Miyamoto.
I don't know. I always thought it was the hair, but I think we'll have a quick discussion. Who's the best side character, Navi or Midna?
Look, listen. Midna is better.
Oh my god. I loved Midna.
But look, listen.
Don't be this way.
Listen. Let's move on. Listen, Midna's better.
I would say
say
one of the main reasons Twilight Princess is my favorite is because of Midna. Because before it was always Link and Zelda, and the side character was just, hey, this is a thing. What's this? And Midna had so much personality. She was her own character, not just a navigational device. And she gave so much to the story, and she pretty much put Zelda on the sidelines. Like, I didn't care what happened to her. I was like, screw her. And then with Midna, we had to carry her back to Zelda. When we were doing all that, I was really worried. I was like, oh, if she dies, I'm out of here. So
it's kind of like a huge contrast between what the game is like, its initial impression, and what it's leaning towards more in its motifs. It's trying to be really dark and depressing, but she just
I don't
overturned.
I don't think so. It's like Majora's Mask
The darkness and the way they present the world gives the initial feeling of despair, and then she lightens up the darkness and makes it not so much a bad thing, but she shows that it's just shadow. It's more or less the same as life.
I'm saying Majora's Mask had dark tones. Twilight Princess was more of just. It was very much my type of personality. Whereas, like, you can still be good, but also have, like, that darkness. Because, like, all of the stuff I enjoy is very psychological. And I kind of like darker writing and humor. So when it comes to, like, Twilight Princess, I would definitely put my recommendation for someone like me for that. Because, I mean, it just hits all the points to where it's like you can still have that like darker side of things, but it's also very psychological and emotional. So the emotions are really high. When Ocarina of Time, it's like, oh, we'll never see Saria again. Oh, that's fine. I already threw away her Ocarina. It's more of a, and then it's just like, well, Zelda's dying, Midna's dying. Oh, everything's going to crap. So, I mean, that's how I feel about it. It's like Ocarina of Time. I didn't feel attached. I love that game to death, but I did not feel attached. It's like the whole you getting married to a fish person. It's like that's a thing, I guess, but it's not something that we actually got invested in like we would if like Midna was like trying to die on us.
One of the highest intense moments of the entire game is when you had just finished getting the light back for the serpent at Helium Land. And then he comes and takes it again, but then curses Midna with the light and gets you embedded with the darkness that lets you be a wolf in the light.
The fact that the story it helped the mechanics so much is great because it's like as you went, you grew as a character and more things happened. So
it was such a different tone from the games they had for the Legend of Zelda previously because you would just go through and finish something, then move on. Finish something, move on. But then it stopped. It pulled you out of that. Like, I need to complete this mentality. It was like, this is serious and this has to be done.
It's more personal too because Ocarina of Time Link, he was saving the world, yeah. He was trying to help his people, but in Twilight Princess, these are his personal friends who are being attacked, and these are his personal, like, family, pretty much, that he's going out and doing what he can. Like the little kid, that always got to me. Like, he was trying to be like Link and all that. Like, Skyward Sword had a little bit of that, but it was very emotional where they were trying to connect the Link to the characters.
Bull riding orc things.
I'm talking about
whenever he comes through and he pushes her out of the way and gets captured and thrown on a stick. And then they have to do a freaking joust on the bridge over a canyon. That was just an epic
like
scene.
when you're at Hyrule Castle and you fight the big guy in the field and he's just like, you're pretty cool. And they're like, he can talk?
It's like, they've got a lot of humor sprinkled through it, which really pulls the whole story. We need to talk about something bad about this. My number one thing that I thought was amazing at first, but then slowly grew to not like, is the magic armor. I know a lot of people don't like the magic armor, but I like it for different reasons.
It's hilarious. It doesn't make any sense, but
it does do quite a bit if you think about it. Like, it just takes so long to build up that number of rupees that you need to actually use it efficiently, especially against Ganon. Ganon can be a longer battle if you don't hit all the right keys.
But that little baby child that owned the shop,
that was my favorite.
In Hyrule Historia, they actually say that was one of their favorite characters, so they gave him a bigger part in it. But that's hilarious. He looks like a baby, and he owns the shop, so it makes it all perfect because it's ridiculous. And there's a lot.
That was actually my favorite soundtrack too. Is his store theme. That was great. And you had to actually do something to make it happen. Like, you had to get him there by donating.
Yeah,
so many rupees to fix a bridge, and then the bridge was usable for you for the rest of the game.
And then we have the caves. That was always a fun thing. Like, you know how in Ocarina of Time you go around and after you went to the Gerudos and became friends with them. That's how, crap, was that how you got the ice arrows?
Yeah, the caves underneath their city. That's where you got the ice arrows.
Yeah, so, I mean, they had stuff that linked it like that, but they added onto it because those caves were actually hard and fun and diverse. You couldn't just, like, rush through it like you could the other thing. In Ocarina of Time, I found everything in Ocarina of Time to be super easy. I felt there was more challenge in this one. Majora's Mask may have more challenge, but,
like, specifically for the Wii version, like, aiming was such a hassle because we didn't really have that good of a version of the receptor for the Wii remote. So it was very hard. The sensor bar, whatever it is. It was very hard to actually aim with the Wii because you'd have to point at the screen and move around and aim. It could be very helpful if it had good motion sensing.
That's the thing. It's like they fixed it with Skyward Sword, but then nobody cared anymore.
That was the Wii Motion Plus, and it came out after Twilight Princess, and it actually made it usable, good. And
I did like it.
Controllers after they released the Wii Motion Plus, which I bought it, the little cartridge that added onto it for $50, and then they started selling the Wii remotes with it in it for like $10.
Yeah, yeah, I bought one with it in it, and it's good. I'll say I think it does drain your battery more though. So, but just back to the game. Just the battle with Ganon was so much more intense than it was in Ocarina of Time.
I loved the stages. There's just so much, like, it just kept going.
Yeah, it's like on the horse fight, like they did horseback, they did like combat sword to sword, and then the beast where you had to be Wolf Link. It was very diverse.
You had to first kick him out of the body. Spoilers. Obviously, that's what I'm not. You had to kick him out of the body of Zelda. He possessed her. Hello. Hi. Comments.
Yeah.
He possessed her, and you had to actually get him out, and then he started attacking you as Ganon. Ganondorf, since whenever he got out, he got damaged. After that, then you were on a horseback, and you had to get him with the light arrows with Zelda, and she was actually a part of the fight. But then he kicked her out of the fight so that you could fight him alone in a circle.
Oh, he took a beating in this game. He was super awesome. He took a beating. Like they set him up so good in the beginning of the game, where it's like all of them are around and they're all trying to chain him up and send him to a different realm because they can't kill him. And he uses the power to pretty much say, "Screw all of you." He was weakened, but then he got Zant to help him bring him back to power. He was just so cool. So. I mean, no matter how you put it, I think Ganondorf in Twilight Princess is so much better than he was in Ocarina of Time.
So for a recap, if anyone has joined us, recently, like this guy that's leaving comments, we're discussing the good and bad things about The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and Twilight Princess specifically, because that was our favorite games out of them. And we're going more in depth about how we feel about it and what happened that made us like the games like they were.
So, I mean, if y'all have any questions about something that we could, like, go in more depth with, like, different finer points that you may not have understood about the story or about the characters.
Yeah, we've played through this games a lot since at least 10 years ago. It was when we
say it's more like 16 years
ago. Yeah, whenever we first got into it was on the Nintendo 64, so it was quite a while ago. It was, Ocarina of Time was our first games. I went back and played the original Legend of Zelda. I don't know if you did. But yeah, it was just a so much different experience, but it was also...
I love games like A Link to the Past and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those, like, smaller version, like, 2D ones. It's like a lot of people are like, the 3D ones are better. It's... You can have a really crappy looking game, and if it has the right story and style, it can be so much better than anything else.
Yeah,
so that's not
Oracle of Ages, A Link to the Past, and all the other games like that, they were on like handhelds.
They were great. I would say they can't come close to like looking better than Twilight Princess because that one is
But
so
at the time,
well.
those and the Harry Potter games for like Game Boy Color and then Game Boy Advance, those were like my favorite games for the Legend of Zelda series specifically.
Yeah. Oracle of Ages and Seasons. They did the same thing they did with like Pokemon, where they had two different games with slightly different mechanics, where one's like time, one is like seasons. So, I mean,
if you have a comment on the older games and if you played them, please leave a comment and we'll try and talk more about it if you want.
So we're gonna move on to Majora's Mask a little bit.
Yeah,
now.
we've already talked about Ocarina of Time, and we can touch back on that if you want it. And we've talked about how Ocarina of Time compares to Twilight Princess, and Majora's Mask is a continuation of Ocarina of Time, like Twilight Princess is. It's just in a different timeline.
Yeah, we're kind of doing like more of a chronological thing. We'll hit other games, and this is like a part one. Like I said in the past, there's nothing we could do to try to cover everything in a certain amount of time, so we'll have to go back and discuss other topics if people want it. So, I mean, we're going to go ahead.
I think I'll just talk about Majora's Mask is a timeline in which Link gets sent back from Zelda after the stuff that happens in Ocarina of Time. And Navi leaves him. She goes off on her own to do her own thing, and he tries to go and find her and winds up in a forest.
And I would like to say the atmosphere in this game is just so wonderful. And
it's not exactly as visually dark as Twilight Princess, but it has much darker themes, and I really like that.
It does have that whole fog that it makes it visually dark, but other than that, it has such good gameplay, such good moments, and I would have to say straight off the bat, one of my favorite parts is the laughing when he takes your ocarina.
Yeah. How it starts is you are just put into this world where you get very little explanation of what happened beforehand unless you play the other game and know what's going to happen chronologically. And you are riding Epona with no saddle. If you're a kid, you just went and got Epona and left to find Navi. And you are attacked by a Skull Kid. Like, you've interacted with Skull Kids before if you've played Ocarina of Time, and you would play along with them with instruments, and you would talk to them and stuff.
All of the characters from this one are pretty much, they use the same models from the original. They just made an entire game out of the older stuff, which was awesome, I think.
Now, whenever you get attacked, you just, like, get past that. You don't get, like, harmed very much. And he rummages through your stuff and takes your ocarina, and then you, of course, have you. This is devastating because that was the Ocarina of Time, the thing that made the last game. You had to have that to advance anything, to even start the game.
Which is funny because when you use all your different masks, you're just using any instrument. But the whole getting trapped as a Deku, when you find a Skull Kid and he turns into a Deku, that was jarring for one. Because
especially the visuals of getting surrounded by the Dekus and then you were just suddenly gone.
Yeah, it was very disconcerting, and a lot of people complain about the whole being stuck as Wolf Link, but then they look over the fact that, hey, you were stuck as a Deku for a long time. But it does make it, like, there's so many different masks, and they want you to use all of them. They don't want you to just stay as one thing all the time. That's the whole point of sticking you as one thing, so you have to get used to using different stuff.
One of the darker themes he's talking about is, like, for instance, the three masks that are the main masks that you use to transform your body into different characters, being the Deku, the Zora, and the Goron. You are literally taking their souls and turning it into a mask and then inhabiting their bodies. It's a really dark theme, but they made it work.
This one is, I'd say it's darker only for the fact that everyone goes about their normal day, and as the days progress, which is another one of the amazing mechanics they put in, which I think they changed for the 3DS slightly, but as the days progress, things get a little darker and darker. They start out denial and go into more of, well, goodbye.
Like, for videos I've watched on the internet, like, I don't know if people ever covered it, but I know that the Game Theorists did. They discuss how all of the different areas could relate to the stages of grief and
Yeah, I
and
mean,
more or less offer the idea that Link is actually dead throughout the course of this, and this is his way of coping with him not being able to do everything that he wanted to do and find Navi and all that. And so he gets new friends, a new fairy, and goes on his own adventure to cope and go through these stages of grief about what happened and that he actually died.
and that's when we get to Twilight Princess. It's where you see Link is like his Stalfos form because they pretty much say once you die you become a Stalfos.
If you're in the forest, the Lost Forest.
Yeah.
If you're a child and die, you turn into a Skull Kid. If you're an adult and die, which means that he probably didn't die as a kid, or else he'd been a Skull Kid.
No, we already have.
That could have so many implications in itself if you died in that tree.
I say look up the fan theory that says that he went back after to Hyrule and saw that Zelda, knowing the information before the all of Ocarina of Time, started a war with the Gerudos, which started the whole Twilight Princess thing, where you go into the forest, not the forest, the desert, and you'll see, markings of, Hyrule, where the Gerudo is. And the Gerudos are gone, if you don't realize.
There is a lot of evidence to support that there was a Gerudo-Hylian civil war. And seeing as...
It's more of just a war.
Bruce from Skyward Sword actually made the Gerudo, his entire race section.
We're just going through theories, and that's a video for another day. So let's try to get back to the games.
What was good about Majora's Mask? What was the best thing in your mind? What did they do right?
I wouldn't have to say the best thing. It's more of I would say atmosphere. Like I said in Twilight Princess, that gets to me. But there's also the whole fact that as you go out throughout the game, you can meet these people, and you get to know them more and more and more. And as you go through the side stories where you get the other masks and you get to talking to them more and helping them out, it just seems so good in that aspect of it, where you get to know these people, and you know they're gonna die. Every single time you reset, you let all of these people die. The people you got to know, the people you got to help. And you can only help so many people as you go. So it's like you help this person this time through, and this person has a tragic story that you don't help. And then another time you'll help them and not the other person. And your goal is pretty much to get through the game and stop all of them from dying. So it gives you a sense of urgency, which is, like I was saying, with the time mechanic. You have 3 days to get all this stuff done. You have to keep going back and back. It's like if you've watched shows like Steins Gate, that gives you the same type of feel of urgency and oh god, I gotta get it done. I gotta save these people.
I was actually about to mention Steins Gate because the thing that I think they did best, which a lot of people failed to do up to this point and well after, is time manipulation mechanics in games.
Ocarina of Time loves it.
Ocarina of Time has the back and forth thing, and it has some paradoxes where the adult Link teaches the kid Link, which makes the adult Link know it.
Yeah.
He teaches
the Song of Storms. Yeah.
The Song of Storms actually originated from the world of Termina, which is Majora's Mask. But you never know about that in Ocarina of Time.
I think it's funny. I can't remember the exact term for it, but it's pretty much a paradoxical thing they cover.
But wait. What if the child version that told him how to do that wasn't the one that you played as, but was the one that came back from Majora's Mask?
We'll not get into that. It's pretty much they used a theory that what if you could teach yourself something, and it's a paradoxical loop.
It's so powerful. But the thing I was going to say is time manipulation. There is a lot more stuff you can do with, say, the Song of Time. You can speed time up, slow it down, and skip half days, full days, and you can't really go back unless you go all the way back.
Something that I really enjoyed is the different types of levels. At when you go into its type of Spirit Temple and you turn everything upside down, that type of stuff. It was really good because they were new. You didn't see anything like that. It's like they went from the time thing. They turned levels upside down. It was
Level
just,
design in general in most Legend of Zelda games is very intricate, but well made and easy to understand.
and I think it's funny. Everybody talks about Ocarina of Time and that water level, but this water level is so much cooler and harder. I think with having to get used to the currents and laying out the area and the whole getting
Actually,
there through a giant turtle.
I just replayed Majora's Mask, say, less than a month ago, and I tanked the water level. Absolutely, because I forgot what all the uses for the ice arrows were. Like there was vents on the ceiling that would pour water onto platforms that would stop them from going up or make them go up, and you had to use the ice arrows to freeze it so that it would change. And I couldn't figure that out for almost an hour and a half because I didn't want to look up how to do it because I played the game before and I wanted to do it myself. And that was super difficult for me. I hadn't played it for years before that.
What would you say is a down point of Majora's Mask?
Something bad about Majora's Mask?
I know it's hard, but we can come up with something.
The whole concept of the moon tears really got me. I don't really like the moon tears, and they have so much application to them that I've never actually gone through and finished all of the things you do with moon tears.
I'll agree to the point where I'll say the Dekus in the freaking when you had to keep every time you would go near this plant, this Deku would slowly come over and make you talk to him. And them in general, having to get those plants was like and get their deeds. It just seemed really stupid.
Imagine playing Ocarina of Time and you're inside Lord Jabba Jabba, and every other time you turn a corner, you have to wait for the King Zora to scoot out of the way so you can go through.
What? Yeah,
that's more or less the difficulty that we had with those things. Because you wouldn't really recognize that it's going to happen until it was already too late.
it's like the dog would chase you, knock you over, you get up, and then it comes over. It's like, oh my god. So it got to a point where you would just go around, like especially when you were have to like deal with the guards, have to talk to them every time you reset so that you can go back through.
Like
you just start going as a Goron and just like screw you and go on by.
Like there's one sequence where if you give the moon tier to the person in the city, like next to the clock tower, then you have to trade that deed for a deed in the swamp because he wants a better place. Then you take his deed and trade it with someone next to the Gorons.
I'm pretty sure you can give a moon tier to them.
No.
Like there's another one.
They'll only accept another position closer to the city.
I remember you can give the moon tier to more people. I think
There's two that are next to the Gorons, and one of them takes the moon tier. The other one takes the deed from the swamp. And you get a heart piece and 100 rupees for getting that.
I would say one of my favorite parts of Majora's Mask would have to be when you do the graveyard race with the king of the Skullfolk, pretty much. And
He was actually the general of the undead army.
Yeah, so that part and the Goron, whatever those, I assume they were Gorons, but those creatures that came out of the ground and rolled at you, it's like they were like
they're basically like, you know how dwarves are to humans? They're basically the same thing. They lived underground and they more or less mutated into boulders instead.
I thought they were like cousins or something. I'm like, what the heck are these? And they were so surprising. Getting cursed by the flying crap. I can't remember what they're called, but
the skulls, the blue flame skulls.
Yeah, and you can't use your sword, and it makes you have to use other techniques.
I would always use the bomb mask.
Yeah, and you could just literally go around and explode yourself to hits. But
I actually use that a lot because I would never go and buy bombs again. Like I would just use that instead. So it was one of the first masks.
I would have to say one of the most annoying things to me was getting to Romana Ranch, where you had to buy the bomb keg and carry it over there and do that whole thing. That was one of my least favorite things to do in the game.
You don't even know how difficult it is riding Epona and shooting arrows at aliens with a keyboard. That was one of the hardest things I did
I always
when I played
hated.
the emulated version.
I love that spot because it's where you get Epona back. It's where you get such a sad story, and it's so difficult too. And it's like all in this one little area. It's where you use the marching mask
Actually,
to get the chickens.
For the alien
That
segment,
was fun.
there is a spam spot.
Really?
There's a place that you can stand. I forgot exactly where, but it's like not too far away from that box that has the.
I always just frantically went around in circles.
Alien bug. And you can stand there and you can see all of the spawn places.
That's no fun. I literally freaked out. It was, like I said, the sense of urgency is like, you mess up, that little girl is dead.
Something I didn't even realize happened until I played it again just recently. After the third day, whenever it says dawn on the third day, she's back. And she cannot remember anything, and she just basically mumbles about nonsense. But she's back, and her sister talks about how that happened to their mother or something like that. And then you realize this has been happening for a long time. Who has taken care of this every time it's happening? If they go in and abduct people and well, they were going for the cows.
I think it's really interesting where it's like on the third day, she gives them some the milk, like it's pretty much their alcohol, and pretty much like she doesn't realize, and doing all this stuff for her little sister. It was just so depressing and so emotional, and it got to me, and I was like, I want to save them.
I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's more like 15 or 20 different sequences that it takes all 3 days to complete. And you have to actually spend the 3 days working solely on these things for it to actually work out.
So you keep these things in the back of your mind, but you're also trying to work on something else. So it's like all this stuff is not getting done.
Like for instance, getting the couple's mask, the lover's mask.
Yeah, that takes like a whole 3 days cycle.
It takes all 3 days, and it takes you slowing down time so that you actually have time to complete it.
I never liked getting the couple's mask. The whole having to talk to Anju and all that.
You also have to get something stolen by the bird and let him steal it. And then go on the third day back to that shop to the shop where he sells the stuff, buy your sword or whatever it is he stole back, and you have the option to buy the dark dream mask, where it will not let you go to sleep. And that's its description. And I don't know what else it does.
I mean, you don't sleep. But I think we should go ahead and move on to the ending, and when we thought about that, we'll go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll get to other parts in a new video.
Well, let's talk about anything Evol, because we haven't talked about anything really yet. So, starting from Ocarina of Time, the ending has you use the power of everyone that you've assisted to defeat Ganon, or as it's shown in Twilight Princess, lock him away.
I would say I love the ending, but it's not as good because it's more of a cliffhanger, which I would say the others are as well. But this one is like you feel like you've won, but you don't feel complete. Like what is going to happen?
Unless you've played Twilight Princess as well, you don't really know what happens.
Yeah, it's like you'd have to wait years and years for these other games. But when you walk up to the princess and you're like, okay, what did they do? It's like you had to wait years and years to figure out what happened.
After you stab the man pig in the face, it just goes away and comes back and everything's blue, and you go get sent back to your childhood and go and warn Zelda, and nothing happens. The game basically is nullified because of this.
Yeah, I literally sat there and just stared at the end screen, sat there and watched Link looking at Zelda, and I just watched it for a long time. I'm like, is something else going to happen?
It's good in the fact that none of the terrible stuff happened, and not all of the villagers die and turn into the zombie people.
We do have the whole ending music thing. That did give us a little bit of closure here and there. I love that.
Basically, the way the game ends is you did nothing. The entire game was stopped because as soon as you had the option to go and let Ganon into the temple, you didn't do it. You just warned the royal family, and they got rid of you.
Yeah, and if you thought, I want to stay as an adult with Zelda, you didn't get that option. It just chose for you. It just, well, I'm going back to be a kid.
No one really wanted to continue on that timeline anyway, because everyone had already.
I'm saying if I played that game and I didn't want to go back. When I first played it, I'm like, wait, no, I don't want to, because you didn't get an option. So
being the three main timelines of the multiverse that is Legend of Zelda, the one that I like the most is the one that branches off to Twilight Princess. That is, he does succeed, and the ending that happened in Ocarina of Time was fully thought out and made a reality. And what happened after that is the killing and Hero Civil War, but then the ending of that game is basically Midna breaking up with you.
Let's not get to that yet.
I thought it was a cool transition.
No, I do want to go into. I do like the Wind Waker, the other branch off. But whoever decided that the Zora would become bird people when the world flooded, I facepalmed when I heard that. I really did. I was like, why? Why would you choose this evolutionary path for your fish people on a flooded planet to become birds? It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't like the Kokiri became these people. But I do think it was a good transition. But I'd like to talk about Majora's Mask and finish on Twilight Princess. So Majora's Mask, you go up into the moon after all this journey. This is your final thing. And you see all these kids and you can sit and play hide and seek with them. It's very... The atmosphere on it is so good. You're so confused and... it just puts you in a mood of like childlike behavior, and you start to see the mask is like a lost kid in a way. And for a long time, it had so much mystery behind it to me, and it was so fun. But I didn't even realize, like when he took all your masks, before I got all the masks and got DD Link, I didn't realize why he took your mask. I would go in with one mask and try to beat it and all this other stuff.
Even if you did get all the masks and achieve the mask with DD Link, you didn't really know what it was unless you went back and read the comic that they released along with the game. He is basically the reason that Majora's Mask is the way he is.
Yeah, DD Link.
The actual person that Soul got turned into a mask.
Yeah, Majora somehow obtained DD Link's soul. I don't remember the exact how, but he ended up like attacking Majora because he was like a ancient like creature with a very strong skin, and DD Link wanted him as like armor. So Majora's Mask's entire purpose is to relive that final battle and beat him. It's all like revenge, and he just wants what was stolen from him and the ability to fight back for it. So
it's funny.
It's kind of like you winning is really tragic in its own way because you're glad you won, you saved all these people, but no one's a winner. He did it out of like anger and sorrow for what happened to him. He didn't do anything to anybody. He was attacked, and so he's just trying to get revenge on that. Like, yeah, he's in the wrong, but it's like no matter what, nobody wins. So it's kind of a melodramatic story in the end. There's like no.
I think it's kind of funny. He works so hard to get his battle with DD Link back, to try again, and then DD Link is so overpowered that he just basically stands there and spams a laser and it kills him.
Most people who played that game through didn't have all masks. And like me, I didn't give him my mask. He's like, "Do you want to give all your masks?" It's like, no, that's stupid.
You had to give him all the time.
I'm saying, yeah, it's like I'm saying I didn't want to. So I went in and I would use the mask. You couldn't really use a mask once you're in there, but the boss battle in general was just so amazing because there were so many stages and so much at stake. It was hard too, I thought.
I know you didn't say it, but whenever you go up into the moon, It's a huge field with like a big circle barrier around it. You can't go that far away. But there's a tree in the middle, a big like at least 50 or 60-year-old looking tree, and it has the Skull Kid, an actual kid wearing this Majora's Mask, and then the four sibling bosses that you killed up to this point are wearing those masks, and it's all kids, and you talk to them and continue on with them and give them your masks so you can get defeated on this mask. So it can be like good versus evil.
In the boss battle, it's like it kind of imitates some of the bosses, but it adds so much new stuff. It's like different stages, and it doesn't really have much of an ending to it, because your whole point was to find Navi, and that never really happens. It just kind of ends, and you just see like an outro song.
The ending cutscene. Can't forget about that. You basically give the mask back to the mask salesman. He thanks you, walks away. Everyone's outside celebrating more or less, and then you turn around and start walking away. Either going back to Hyrule or
to find
Navi.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna say he did.
I don't think he did. I think he went back to Hyrule because
he went back to Hyrule, and this, my own theory, more or less, is he went and found Navi, then he went back to Hyrule to become a knight. And then after that...
There's no evidence that he found Navi. He pretty much realized that Navi is gone, and he goes back to Hyrule, sees all the destruction of the Gerudo Hyrule War, and pretty much devotes his life to fixing it, and then that's when he dies and ends up becoming a Stalfos and helping.
Well, this is all speculation.
Yeah.
And
it's like you got the hero of time, and then you got the hero of Twilight, which is who he trains in Twilight Princess.
Continued from there to Twilight Princess. This is after the events of what is known as the Hylian and Gerudo Civil War, which has never actually been confirmed, I don't think, but is a very long-standing theory that has a lot of information.
So what did you think of the ending? Did
I
you cry?
I think it needed to happen. I think it needed to happen.
I didn't think it needed to happen.
Because
in Twilight Princess, you defeat Ganon, peace is restored, and Zelda is off doing her own thing.
And the World of Light is no longer has any of this Twilight over it.
Yeah.
It is no longer in the World of Dark, so Minda's logic is that the World of Dark, with all of the power that is residing there, is not... the World of Light is not strong enough or ready
it's
to
not
accept
ready.
any of it. So she goes and destroys the mirror of Twilight that is a portal between the two after she goes back.
In my own regards, I think there's other ways to get to Twilight other than the mirror. But I think
there might be a couple mirrors.
I think the whole game is that they want to show that the light and dark can coexist, and that the dark isn't an evil presence. It's another side of the coin. So I think the whole point of the game was that these two should coexist, and I think there might be the story of how that it might need time, but one day these two worlds may come together. But it was just so melodramatic and so like overwhelming when it's over. Like you'll never see her again. It's like you spent all this time
in the newest game. Was it Breath of the Wild?
Yeah,
Breath of the Wild. There are actually statues littered throughout the place that have like moss growing up them, and it's kind of hard to make out the features. But a couple in particular that I've seen in pictures of the game, it resembles the mask from the Twilight Realm, and some of the statues look like they are of the people from Twilight. So my theory is they've found a way to go back. And
remember, we wanted to keep the series for a different video. I'm trying to talk about the ending.
Yes.
So, yeah, like I was saying,
I've made my comments. I think it needed to happen. I didn't want it to happen, but it needed to happen. She broke her mirror into 1,000 pieces, which it could have been perfect. It was just like sand. Just nothing back to do.
I
hope. in a
No.
desert toward the sand. Oh man.
Like I was saying, I think it was very emotional, and I think they did a great job of that because they took a character with so much personality and put them together and made them like grow together. Like at first, she was taking advantage of you. She was using her for her own personal gain to save her own skin and people, and she ends up deciding that's not the way to go. She likes you, and she starts to learn that the world of light isn't that bad, and that's the whole coexisting thing. So, I mean, they just did a great job of making us feel like we've lost something, which is a big part of the game. So, I love Twilight Princess's ending, and I will always think it's my favorite game as of right now.
In fact, Twilight Princess in particular is one of the first Zelda games that actually gave Link character traits.
Yeah, very much.
Before this, like in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and all of the games before that and on the handheld, he has always been a blank slate for you to project yourself on. Basically, a Link.
Yeah, in a way that worked, but in a lot of ways, it just made him seem less relatable. And
no, I really do enjoy the whole projecting yourself thing on it, but giving him some traits, but not overwhelming numbers of traits, allows you to do the same thing.
It allows
also
you to care so much more for the characters.
It allows you to get into a certain mindset, so that you're not just going at it like as if you were playing Wind Waker and it's all colorful and stuff, and that's the mindset you have, where everything's colorful and I don't play it, but jolly, happy and stuff. That's not the feeling they want you to have, so we give them traits that reflect the feeling they want.
Well, I think we're gonna about end it there. It's just so to just recap, Twilight Princess is the best.
But my favorite game throughout them is Skyward Sword.
Really? Okay, we got another video.